go. So this is important for me. I learned that. So I think a lot of things. It was my husband and me also didn't see the problems of our ski baby. We treated, we took care. So probably if you do it with a partner, it was more than a business. It was our personal thing. We wanted to succeed. We have 3 children. They were in the age to grow up. So this was a new baby, and you never should take a business that close to your privacy. So I think everything is said about a fuck up thing.
Thank you, Nicola, for sharing your story with us. Are there any questions from the audience? Feel free in order to wrap up the presentation.
Yeah, you mentioned that all the business agents that you approached basically told you that you had no chance against the competition in Austria. And my question is, how did you manage to push yourself back up again? Because I imagine it to be quite hard if everyone tells you that your business basically has no future.
So I was an active ski racer, and I come from sports. And if somebody tells you there is no future, it just challenges you.
That's true.
Thank you. Would you recommend people to start a business with their significant other, or like, do you think it's really risky? Because a lot of people tell me don't start a business with close family or friends, and I've actually started a business with my boyfriend, and it's caused like some friction. And I can only imagine if it was my husband, like, oh god. So, what are your tips for starting a business with like a really close friend or family or significant other?
So it's really nice to do business with someone you really like. But as I mentioned before, I think you should have people looking from outside much more than if you're just a business partner, because all the personal things come into your business. You're talking about it day and night, even when you go to bed. Just take someone from outside who gives you advice, or probably a supervisor or whatever, a coach.
I was wondering, you mentioned like funding opportunities in Austria, and that you spent all that time filling out those forms, and I always hear like about this kind of funding or this Förderung. Do you recommend that, or did you find it was actually more helpful to just focus on your business, and if you had the other sources of funding, to rather do that than apply for?
So I think funding is a really nice thing for startups and everything, projects in companies. But if you're so small, if you're only 2 persons and you should do the sales, and you occupy yourself only with filling out these things, so you have to find out what is more important. I never would do it again. Never, never, ever.
Thanks.
Thank you. Again, you will have more time during the discussion round to ask further questions. Now we continue with our third speaker, Katharina Klausberg.
Hi, I'm Katharina. I'm the co-founder of Spock. Spock is a flea market app where you can easily sell your own stuff. Today I'll talk about not that much about Spock. I'll give you a quick introduction, but more about how we started the company. So Spock wasn't our first product. We started with something completely different, made a lot of learnings there, made a lot of mistakes in order to ramp up Spock as successfully as we did. So first I show you gives a little bit of insights how we are thinking, how we are doing. So it's colorful, it's somehow fun, and yeah, it's a lot of energy. And currently we are active in 6 countries. We are having over 30 million downloads. Every month, over 10 million users are actively using the app and the website. And they're browsing in the app over 10 million hours a month. So this is around, it's over 1,000 years if you do the calculations. Yeah. We started with 4 team members at Spock, plus 3 students part-time, and now we're 115 team members from 26 different countries, all situated here in Vienna, running Spock together. But how did it all start? So we launched Spock 4 years ago in autumn. The company is a bit older. We started, me and my co-founder, that's the guy in the back, Armin. We had the idea or the willingness to create something on our own in around 2010, I would say. We were both had some work experience before. I was here at the WU, working at the Entrepreneurship Institute, doing there some business planning projects or some innovation projects, and Armin was at the BCG back then. And we both had the ambition to create something that matters. And we were sitting down together, spinning a lot of ideas, and came up with the idea to finally.com. This was the idea of a product recommendation portal where you can get advice for what's the right notebook for you to buy or the right DSLR camera for you to buy in case you're not that much of a tech expert. We get crowdsourced recommendations. We thought back then, it's a great idea. It's not out in the market. It would help us a lot in searching for new products. Why not do this? So we were sitting down together, we were making a big concept, we were writing a business plan. I think it had over 100 pages. We applied for subsidies. We were lucky. So we also could get some subsidies. So we had the AWS backing us, put in some own money, and started building up the company. So we founded the company in the beginning of 2011, got the first team members on board, who are still on board, and started to develop. In the beginning, we thought, okay, it's an easy thing. We just need a small interface where you can put in your things, nothing much in the background. Over the time, we found out, okay, no, much more is needed. Actually, legally, we need this, and we need that, and we need to do this. So in the end, we built a big product database in the background with 1.6 million products that were updating themselves every couple of minutes. So we also had price information, where you buy in the end the products. So a really huge thing. It cost us a lot of time to develop this before we were first out there. I think we launched in autumn 2011. Back then we were also successful in getting our first business angels on board. So Hansi Hansmann and Speed Invest joined us at that moment, and we started. So we were very engaged and let's go to the market and see how users are using our product. And we saw, great, they're using it. But out of the 10 features we developed, they only used 5, and 5 others were missing. And one of those features was pretty crucial. People were looking for advice when they are in the retail stores. So when they're at the electronics store and are thinking of really, should I buy this one or should I buy that one? And we were a boring desktop website. Not usable at the mobile back then, no chance. So we're sitting down together in the team and thought, okay, we need to change something, we need to go more mobile. We were missing data for doing this, more mobile. And came up with another idea, came up with the idea of Spock. Back then, we had to make also the decision, do we want to go this step, or do we want to work further on also reaching our goals? If you have some investors on board, you usually have some milestones you want to reach, and from a business side, you can say, okay, I can reach those goals if I want to. But if you're seeing that everything is not fully going into the right direction that you want to, I would not recommend doing this. So we actively said, okay, no, we want to change something. So when sitting down together in a team, we came up with the idea of Spock and said, hey, why not? Let's do this. Let's learn something. We had no idea about mobile development back then. We were coming from a web background and just wanted to get the experience and see, is this something that only we as a team really enjoyed or would have enjoyed to have, or is it something that also other people like to use and that brings them a benefit? So we were sitting down together and found out how we can develop such an app. As we had no idea, and we're coming from a web background, we were first thinking, okay, how can we do this? We analyzed 1 week all the different web frameworks that you can, more or less in the end, you can develop an app on a web language and put it in a, frame it in an app. And we analyzed this, and after a week we said, okay, no, this just plainly doesn't work. So our team decided we are going to learn this. So they learned how to develop a mobile app within a couple of days and weeks. 2, 3, 4, a couple of months later, we started with Spock with a very, very tiny version. And that was also the main learning we had from before. Finally, we tried to do everything. We made a big plan how the product works in every single detail. We had it's in German, it's called Lastenheft. So we defined how every site looks, how every functionality is connected to each other, of over 100 pages as well. With Spock, we were sitting down together, we had one PowerPoint presentation, a very short one. We developed a prototype where you can do just the core functionalities, just to list something within seconds. So take out your phone, picture, title, description, price, it's out. And on the other hand, discover beautiful in your neighborhood. So to see the items, scroll down, if you like something, go for it and get in contact via the app with the seller. There was no search, there were no categories, there was no way of earning money in there in the first place. So because we said, it doesn't matter, if we have all those things and then only 100 people are using it, we are losing a lot of development time, but we don't know if it's actually worth it. So let's start very, very tiny, but only if we see that it's used, that it makes sense for people, then we develop further with the community. And that's what we're doing from day one on. So we had the first sales on the first day. The app was crashing so we launched Monday. On Friday, the Android app was crashing all the time. So we looked into the crash reports and found out, okay, we were testing the Android app only with 200 items. Because we thought, okay, it will take ages until there are 200 items in there. Yeah, there were 500 and this was too much. So we're sitting down together and fixing this. And as he said, startup life is half good, half bad. For us, it's like, it's a roller coaster. So there are ups and downs and ups and downs. And most of the time, there are ups and downs in the same week. The thing that changes over time, you get confident that whatever down is coming, you find a way to solve it. So fucking up or making mistakes is normal and it's necessary in order to learn what's important. So just stand up, get the dust off and go further, make it better the next time.
Thank you, Katharina, for sharing your story with us. Again, 2 or 3 questions from the audience, specifically to the told story. Yes?
I was wondering how you managed to build up your mental strength to just push off the dust and blow off the dust and go further.
I think that's the only thing you can do. In the end, you don't want to be the person, when you're looking back and saying, it didn't work out. Do you want to be the one to blame yourself for that it didn't work out? No. In the end, you want to do the best you can to make this happen. After time, you're responsible for people. So you want to do whatever you can to get things going. So I think it didn't matter if you're falling down. It just matters that you continue going. And that was always the mindset. And I think for us, it was also, we're not good in celebrating somehow. I don't know why. We always forget about this and then looking at the next thing we can do better, and the next thing we can do better, and the next thing we can do better. So we're always finding things where there is room for improvement.
Is there another question?
thanks a lot for the story. So you did it obviously the right way to switch from Findlay to Spock. But I'm interested in how did you manage it to get funded, have a business angel, had the money from the government. You launched it, you had users, 5 out of 10 products worked out, and then you said, no, let's do something different, very, very small, and see what happens. What did Hans Handelman say to that?
He liked it in the end.
In the end, of course.
In the end. No, I think, I mean, how we did it, working day and night. So that's how we did it in the end.
But
if you have business angels, yeah, we had already tractions with Finally, and it was going like that, and we knew we could push it up, but it didn't make sense for us. And if you have also business angels or other investors on board, it's a partnership. So you're looking for someone, same as for team members, you're looking for someone you trust, you want to work with in good times and in bad times. And hopefully bad times don't come. But that's also something in case this needs to be a trustful relationship. So from our side, the only logical thing was to do, talk actively, talk early, talk together and say, okay, we can do this, but we don't think it's the right thing to do. We would like to do this and that. And then of course you need to convince that this is the right way. You need to analyze the market, if it makes sense, if it's a good market, what's the business model, what's the potential. Those things need to be done. Yeah.
Thank you again. So as already mentioned, we are going to have a small discussion round before we start our get-together. So maybe I can initiate the discussion round by a question to our speakers. If you could give one advice to your younger self, what would it be? Can this, do you maybe want to start?
Can I sit?
Yeah, sure.
Should I tell the same story or something else? Well, I had this ego thing already. Just let me think what else is there. So, what I think is like, I learned a lot while I was working. You know, I finished my bachelor studies at the WU Vienna in International Business Administration, and then I started like making sales and marketing and what you do. And the thing is, I learned a lot while working like on the job, and like I was doing a lot of practical work, and it gave me a lot of experience after time. Still, I believe, particularly in terms of marketing, the theoretical background, I always felt, and I still feel it, it is missing. You know what I mean? Because sure, if you just study something, it's not enough, because you have to go out, you have to start working, and then you gain a lot of new knowledge. Still, I believe if I had like focused more on the theoretical part as well, I would have approached things differently, because what you learn in theory is true. It's not that far away from how the professional world looks like. So what I would do is like still like learn the basics and the theoretical parts in terms of marketing, because I'm now an online marketer, because I think it would have like accelerated my development. Still, you always have to combine it with practical work, and then I think you have a really good combo.
I think that's hard to have one advice. When looking back what we have learned over the last couple of years, there's so many tiny details that would have been great to know in the beginning. Maybe one thing would be, if you're starting a company, make sure that everyone is full-time committed from the beginning on, as otherwise this will cause over time some problems and just give you headaches without any positive impact for the business in a way.
So for me, it's a bit longer time when I was young. So there's even more I could give advice to myself. But there was one thing, and my whole life I always did business with my husband. We started this student project. We did champion stores, the first franchise stores in Austria. So we always were together, and I always trusted him because he did this business study in Innsbruck, and I always thought, he did these studies, and I never found out that he was sometimes building castles in the sky. And I found out this in the Edelweiser project. So if I'm now doing some, had my son with an olive oil project, and especially if you do it with people you love and you or even good friends, check out the business components of everything it makes. Not only, I love them and this sounds so great. So for me, I'm trying to check out, is this business or is it, now in this case, just because I love my son and I'm fond of what he does. So I think for me, this I learned.
So, any more questions from the audience? We want our speakers to discuss or input.
Yeah, to ask you a question, especially for the Edelweiss community. Was it hard for you to admit that you fucked up? Like, were you scared of negative response from society or from your closest relatives?
So this was no point for me, but it was a big point for my husband. For me, I didn't care. We had this INC in Edelweiser. Doesn't work anymore?
No,
It doesn't.
Okay. And immediately after, it was in August, I just went there and bought back the rest of the skis and started myself again. Just sell the rest of the thing we had. So it wasn't a problem for me, but it was for my husband.
Maybe also a question.
Another question is,
To all our three speakers. What was the worst piece of advice you've gotten from either a colleague or like a funder or from family or friends? Or are there a couple of bad negative advices you have gotten in the past which kind of influenced you in a negative way? Maybe a tough question.
That's really a tough question. The most impactful was, don't ask a lawyer, it's not necessary. So ask a lawyer, it's worth it. I think otherwise it's not a single bad advice in the end. You're getting so many insights, and the more insights you get, the more you can learn from. You need to pick out what's important for you. So what we learned, an investor is not doing your business. Never, however experienced they are, you as an entrepreneur are responsible for making the things happen. You can get advice, but make sure you always are in the driver's seat and you're always running the thing and taking care, and also have the feeling that you are responsible for it.
It's a pretty interesting, but it's a tough question. I would say that I once heard trust is useless, and that influenced me a lot because of the experiences I've made. I've lost a lot of trust over the last couple of years, but I now have a different perspective on this, because I believe, sure, you can't be just someone who believes everyone out there, you know, but it is important to sometimes trust people in what you're doing, and I believe that end, the outcome will most often surprise you in a positive way. So that, I would say, was a bad advice, which I followed for some time.
So I think the advice we got in this Edelweiser company, it came just from the trend of mass customization. Everybody was waiting for that, and it looked interesting. So we just took this new way of production, and we weren't ready for it. We were much too small. The technique didn't work, so we just took it out of a trend which wasn't ready. So it wasn't a lawyer, it wasn't someone, but it was a trend. We were too early.
Any more questions? Yes.
I'm curious because the startup life is sometimes very stressful. What do you do to calm down, to take a time out from your business?
Sport. So going to the gym twice a week.
Okay.
Doing some, yeah.
So, but are there also some rituals you do every day, like meditation or something like this, to really focus on what's coming next?
Drinking a lot of coffee.
And wine.
We had one thing in the beginning. We were playing always table soccer at the end of the day. No matter if it was 8 in the night, midnight, or 6 in the morning. It was always in the end playing table soccer. And I think this helped us getting the head somehow free, getting some good sleep, and continue doing the things.
So as I come from sport, I don't take sport for, but I like to move, just on my bike and go outside and find some water, just to go barefoot. And there's one thing I always do if it gets stressy. So this is probably sport. I do push-ups. I just do push-ups. And if it's really stressy, I do it every morning 50, but if it gets stressy, it's 50 push-ups.
So, I'm not such a fan of like throwing in some buzzwords, but there's one thing, a concept called mindfulness. It's the opposite of multitasking, single tasking. So, for instance, what I do is like, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, when I'm eating, I'm just concentrating on what I'm eating. You know, I'm not watching like my smartphone or watching like the TV. And when I'm talking to someone, I try to talk to him and not, again, watch on my smartphone and use it. And this somehow relaxes you because you're not thinking about all the things simultaneously. That's what I could kind of advise. I'm not telling you that I'm doing it like throughout the day, but if I feel okay, I now don't have the energy, I'm very stressed, I try to focus on one thing and not do all things together.
I think there's never a perfect team. Even one day can be perfect, the next day isn't, because people have their own problems. So it helps a lot to talk, and also if you're the founder or owner of a company, of a startup, you also have to act like a coach, and it's empathy which helps. But at some points you also have to be strict and just finish the teamwork as one or the other one.
Yes. So For us, team is the most important thing. You're winning together, you're losing together, and that's the mindset I think that needs to be there in order to be successful. And it's not someone else, one person standing and say, oh, I did great, well, very well. No, it's always a team effort. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And that's something we realized over time. You need to be faster in accepting this. It's a hard thing. And you see it in the end, both sides see that it doesn't work for the one or the other reason. Then you talk once, and then you talk twice, and then you talk a third time. And you always have the hopes that things are changing. But sometimes you realize it doesn't. And then it's the best for all sides to split apart and to go separate routes in the future. And if you're looking back then, you're several times thinking, okay, we should have done this quite some time ago already. And in the end, that's also better for the team around, because if you have someone who isn't happy anymore, this influences the others around, and in the end then they tell you, it's really good now. Yeah. So be confident to your gut feeling that you have, talk, try to get things moving if it works, and yeah, but be strict then in the end if it doesn't. And one thing, don't take people for skills, take people for passion. So you can learn skills, but you can't learn the attitude, the drive, the willingness, the eagerness to learn new things.
I really love my team and what you do. Was leading the marketing team. We were around 10 people. And even though I love them, there were situations which were quite challenging. The thing is, for instance, there was one employee, I was okay with that guy, but he had, as you said, like a negative impact on the other employees, you know, and this is a pretty strong sign. And if you're not fast enough, you know, and not you're not executing enough, you know what I mean? Then this will spread, this negative aura, this negative atmosphere will start at one point and spread, you know, throughout the whole company. And then you have to make tough decisions, but I think it's quite okay because most of the people here, you know, particularly in the startup world, you know, it's not like that when someone leaves, the world is over, you know, it's not like this. Sometimes it's much, much better for both parties. And what I think is very important, that you don't need, like for instance, the 10 people I was managing, not everyone was like professional in his or her field, but the people were like adding to each other's skills. So it's very important. What I see is like a lot of co-founding teams start together, and they're similar in terms of like behavior, in terms of strengths. But what you need is like people adding to each other's skills. That's very important.
I have a question to all speakers, and it's rather general. When you decided to start your companies, did you perceive that as being risky? Or were you so convinced about your idea that you were aware of risk, but it was more the passion which made you start it? Like, yeah, just to rephrase it, were you thinking you were doing something risky when leaving your jobs or leaving what you were doing before and actually starting your business?
Of course, after you heard my story, we were aware it was risky, and probably we loved the risk. So this was one reason we also started.
It's highly risky. If you think of if you have 100 startups, 10 after a couple of years don't even exist anymore. Out of the 10, maybe 1 or 2 are really successful, the other are mediocre. So startup business is an extremely risky business. But from a personal perspective, I didn't perceive it as risky because you're forced to learn so many things in such a short amount of time that no matter if it's economically a success or a failure, you've learned so much that you can use it everywhere. So back then when we founded the company, there was no loan in the background, so there were no debts, there were no kids, no other obligations. So it's just taking care about myself in a way, and in a way learning. And yeah.
So my risk was again much more personal in terms of like when I left the WU after my bachelor's, I had like some good opportunities like from bigger corporations, you know, working abroad and so on, and I skipped them for like involving myself with what to do. So this was one thing, but personal why? Because I had pressure from my parents, from my friends, because they were not believing what I was doing. They thought I'm crazy that I'm doing this and skipping all the other opportunities. And for me, this was always important, you know, that my parents and my family are like proud in what I'm doing. But it took me years to prove them, hey, it was the right decisions. So it took some time. This was my risk. I mean, there are other risks as well, like financial risks and so on for sure. But this personal approach, this was like decisive for me.
I would be interested in how do you cope with your weaknesses and also mistakes, personally for you and also within your team.
Senior advice. So first of all, if I know my weaknesses and I know the weaknesses in a team, I can deal with the weakness. If I know what I do, and even if I do it wrong, I can change it. So I also do this for movement and sports. I think it's the same thing in living together and also making business mistakes. If you're not aware what you're doing, you don't find out if it's a mistake, if it's good, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can't change it. You only can change it when you know what you do. And there are different techniques, of course, to find out what you are doing. But for me, it's always really nice to have smart people around me, if it's with business, a coach or another expert to talk about what I'm doing. I like good advice with people to find out what I'm doing. I don't like someone to point at my mistakes. Nobody likes, I think. But if someone gives me a surrounding to find out my mistakes, I much easier can change it. And so I also act with people working with me and also people doing sports with me. Don't give them any advice. You're doing this wrong, so this is negative, and you won't change it.
Yeah, there are two different things. The one is personal weaknesses. So what are, I don't know, are you not organized enough or things like this? And the other thing is that you're missing some skills that you need. On the skill side, it's either try to find out what's better, learning the things yourself in order to understand them. I think that's the first place. And then complementing the team with people who have the skills in more details. On the other side, we always try to be extremely open. So we have a very direct feedback culture. It's totally normal that mistakes happen, and they happen daily, multiple times. So don't try to make them look nice. No one can learn from that, but just openly discuss it and find a way to make the things different and learn from that. And that's a way, I think, how we improved also ourselves and improved our skills. From skills in general, you can learn so many things by your own nowadays. So if you just Google, you get into all the different topics in very details in a very short amount of time. So it's a lot of self-learning and reading and talking with others.
I'm not sure who to watch. Okay, yeah. Yeah, feedback culture. I think that's the key word. What I did, for instance, like we had regular one-on-one meetings, me and my employees, and these were like very personal, you know, because for some people it's very hard to talk about like weaknesses in front of all the others. So we had these one-on-one meetings regularly, every month, for instance, for all employees, and we're talking about like our strengths and weaknesses, and I told them what I was expecting. I told them what I think still needs to be improved, and they told me what they want to see improved. I also hesitated on tell me, okay, where can I improve myself in terms of like, again, has it to do with like your social competence, or is it more like because of what you're doing, so the hard competence, and I think these are very, very important. And the more you hear it from different parties, the more you realize, hey, actually, this really seems to be like a weakness. So let's figure out how we can improve it. That's what I think.
What was the most uncomfortable thing you had to do as a CEO? Like, for example, firing your best friend or lying to investors or something like that.
I think it was stopping our first baby. So making the decision to shut down the first product we built, where we put so much effort in, so much heart, so much passion, to make the decision to just shut it down. Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't a comfortable decision after we got what's concourse? Bankruptcy. Who goes there to deal with that and see that? So this decision fell, but it was like a lottery. So this was not so nice. And also, I remember I had to fire because I was for human resources. A lady. She was, I know her for a long time. So this was a bad decision as well. Uncomfortable, not a bad decision, of course, because for the team it was better.
Well, I wasn't a CEO, but I mean, there are a lot of hard decisions. The first time I had to dismiss someone from a team, this was pretty tough. I believe it was even the first time ever at the company. So I was the first one dismissing someone. But in the end, I was thinking, okay, what's the best for the company? So when you're in situations like this, always try to think what's the best for the company, not just for yourself or like for one employee, what's the best for the team in general, for the company, and then decisions get easier.
All of your startups grew into companies which have multiple co-workers. And what do you do to keep this startup-like, innovative corporate culture and keep the innovation in the business?
I think it's a tough and it's a moving process in a way. In the end, what you want to have the startup culture we're having, also when we're double the size, when we're triple the size. So in the end, we are trying different things, and I think in a year we will do other things that we're doing now, and we're doing now other things that we did in the past. And as we're growing so fast, we're not always fast enough also with the decisions. So in the beginning, for example, we're now sitting in 2 big rooms, with a lot of meeting rooms. In the beginning it was one room, and everyone knew everything. So you see what's going on, you have the full overview. The bigger we got, this wasn't obvious anymore. And we thought, okay, it's one room, and everyone gets everything, but we realized, okay, it's not the case. So we started with quarterly team updates in the first place, so that we were all together, and then we were making party, and then we were going in the worst bar, to the worst bar we found nearby, and had quite some fun, just to be sure that everyone is getting the full picture. And then we realized, okay, every quarter isn't good enough, because we're still growing so fast, and so many people are here. And if we're only getting together once every 3 months, it's not good enough. So we started to introducing newsletters. So the What's Hot in Spock, where every 2 weeks we're summarizing what the different teams are doing, and what we achieved, and with monthly team updates. Another thing, we went to Mallorca in June together for a couple of days, and also did together some things. For example, we have a support team who is taking care if users have some questions, and there we just used half a day so that every one of us is doing this. And so many cool ideas came out of this, and improvements that were used afterwards, and people had ideas, okay, we can do this and we can do that. So in the end, I think it's important that we find ways how we're sticking together as a team, and not it's perceived like an employee and the manager and this and that. I hate all those things personally. I think it's just, in a way, nonsense. It's not how a team should work. You need some structures, of course, because otherwise you're lost and no one knows how to take decisions. But it's doing the things together, and also, I hope that everyone with us has the feeling, if there is a good idea, just go for it, and let's do this, and then let's make a difference. Yeah, but we're learning every day.
Nothing to add on that.
I think if you give people room to tell their ideas, you know, and you listen to their ideas, this is the first step that drives innovation. And then, if you even like realize some of the ideas, that pushes them even more, you know, to contribute innovation in the future as well. So I think this kind of combination. So give people room to talk what they're saying, listen to them. They will share a lot of ideas, and you don't have to realize all of the ideas, not just some of them, so that people see, okay, wow, what I'm telling is has some kind of works. They're realizing the ideas, and that pushes people, you know, gives them passion. I think if you do this, you can guarantee innovation for a longer period.
There is one thing we introduced a couple of months ago. It's called OKR, Objective and Key Results. It's a technology that is used at Google and a lot of other companies. And we're using it in a bit modified way. So we're having our company goals, what we want to achieve in the next year. And then we have quarterly goals, what we want to achieve as a company, as Spock, in the next quarter. And then we have team OKRs, where the team decides, okay, how can we best contribute? So what do we think we should work on? So the team in the end is deciding on what are the points we should work on, and then we're discussing this together. And that's in the way how we all together build our roadmap and our areas we're working on.
Thank you. Yes.
What would you respectively consider as the biggest, let's say, waste of time you had in the startups? For example, I guess Nicola would say probably filling out those damn forms for subsidies. Or is there any other area or something which you said, I always thought this is super important, but actually didn't bring you a single step forward?
Definitely, it was the meetings and talkings and not prepared. We had a meeting every day, just of these problems we had, but with no results. And then we sized it down on a meeting twice a week or 3 times a week. But it wasn't a meeting with we had everybody from the company. We had 12 people working with us on the team. So the guys from which were doing the adhesive and technical stuff sat there with the secretary, and it was we had issues which shouldn't have been discussed in the team. So we should have a discussion with the technical staff, and then we should have divided this. So it took us, and we didn't find out for a long time, and it really took time, and it was nonsense.
So many things happen. I think there are things on product side, for example, where we could have made things from the beginning on different to save quite some time, where you can arrange processes differently so that you are organizing in the beginning a bit more, and then in the end save time. But I think from a founder perspective, the thing that costs the most energy is if there are some team things, some things with some members of your team, and you're taking all those things, or also with investors, with everything in a way. So whatever is coming up, you're taking the things extremely emotional. And this causes you a lot of energy, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of thinking. In the end, it's not productive. But maybe somehow also this makes the special difference that you're able to go this long path and to have the passion to do this. So yeah, that's just from trying to get an outside perspective of what's hindering sometimes.
There are two things. One was the rebranding of our logo after 2 years. It took us a month, the rebranding, and we put a lot of effort into it. We talked with a lot of agencies. In the end, we did it on our own, but we spent a lot of hours. And this rebranding didn't add one additional customer or user for us, I think in the beginning it's so important to focus on the product and how to sell it. You don't have to have the perfect branding or so. Yeah, it boosts you, it helps you, but in most cases, having a good product and knowing how to sell it is quite good for a start. And the other thing is like key performance indicators, KPIs. We're having like regular meetings every Monday, and key performance indicators are very important. But the thing is, if you have like 500 KPIs and numbers you're tracking, so how many users do you have, what are you doing on the website, how many revenue do we generate every day or every month, then it's not good to go through all these 500 KPIs in one meeting and every Monday. Focus on the most important key performance indicators and go through them. All the other KPIs need to be monitored anyway, in your own team, but not like in a management meeting where like 6-7 people, and after the 10,000th time, the people still don't have understood what this kind of KPI means. So we lost a lot of hours in this kind of meetings.
Maybe a final question?
Yeah, I have a question about the organizational structure. So I guess it's not like the traditional strong hierarchical order, but more like a flat hierarchies. But maybe you can tell about what's the role of the CEO? Like, is it more a kind of a commander, or is he just a facilitator, an enabler of the employees? And have you maybe considered alternative organizational forms like holacracy or something like that? In case you've heard of this.
So as I work on my own at the moment, there's nothing to decide, but I really love the idea of holacracy and also structures like that. I think it's in the future, but if I would start a company with a lot of teammates and co-workers and people around me, I would make sure that people have this mindset of holacracy. I don't think everybody is ready to do that, because I just can talk from my kids. I left them free, but if kids first you let them free with 12, they would do a lot of nonsense. So I think it would be the same in a company.
We had a lot of, it was hard for us sometime realizing that we need some kind of structures. So we never liked any job titles or things like this. We still don't like it that much. But we realized that it's necessary at some point to have team leads. You need to have people who are the first person someone can address. So we're having some structures, and we need them for all the different teams. We have team leads depending on the size, even someone who is in the end taking care of the different sub-teams then. That's just a necessity with the growth. How the organizational structure is built up, there are different approaches to this. So we're currently having topic-related teams, but they're working very interrelated. So the different teams are working together in different constellations on a daily basis. There are other concepts where you have some kind of feature teams. So depending on the features, you're mixing the people together, but also sitting them then together working on this. So we don't have this sitting down together, and we don't have one project, one person, but usually multiple projects with multiple different people involved. For us, it changed over time what was the role in the past. We always were very, very operational in whatever we were doing. So I was taking a lot of care of our financials, of our legal things, was in the beginning a lot involved in product development, mainly from the phase when we together decided, okay, that's the feature we want to do, then also making sure, okay, we're not forgetting anything in planning this and implementing it, and making sure when it's implemented that it's also bug-free, and helping finding the bugs, or just finding the bugs. And those things. So I think depending on where you can be the most help, you should do this, and you should do everything that you can and get into everything that is helpful. Then there are some things where you of course are in a way solely responsible. That's the financing of the company. That's something, it's your responsibility. You need to make sure that this is secured. So things like this.
I've always been a fan of self-management, but I have to agree. We get back to holacracy. Holacracy has to do a lot with self-managing teams. But the thing is, some people are just not ready for this, and I've experienced the same. Even young people are not always ready, like for managing everything on their own. So what I've experienced is like, for most of the people, it's important to know the framework within their working. So need a clear visions, they need some clear goals, so they know, okay, what can they do, what not. But then once they have the task or the goal, they just do it on their own, the way they believe it's good, and then they need some kind of sparring partner or coach, whatever, with whom they can exchange ideas, to get feedback on it. So this is what I've experienced. Room for doing things on your own, but still having someone whom you can relate to and ask them if it's that way better or the other way. That's what I've experienced.
So I think we can continue with the next stage of our event, being the get-together. I want to use this opportunity in order to thank again the startup department, who really helped to organize this event, and of course also thank our great speakers to join us tonight and tell their stories and share their experiences. So please give a last round of applause.